Emma's footsteps echoed softly against the polished hardwood floor of the small Dallas martial arts gym. It was her first day, and she felt the weight of every eye in the room, even before she entered. She adjusted the borrowed gloves clumsily, noticing their faint smell of leather and sweat. Her palms were already damp, and the faint chill of the evening seeped in through the open windows. She swallowed hard. This is it, she thought, trying to calm the nerves that gnawed at her chest. Like a persistent wind. Just learn. Don't embarrass yourself. She paused at the threshold, watching a group of men practice combinations. Each punch and kick landed with a precision Emma had only seen in videos. Their bodies moved in fluid, confident patterns. Some were tall, broad-shouldered, muscles glinting under the harsh gym lights. Others were wiry, quick, and sharp. A mix of intensity and casual camaraderie radiated from the room. Emma felt small, insignificant, invisible. "Hey, you're late," a burly man called, wiping sweat from his forehead with a towel. His voice wasn't unkind, just matter of fact. First-timers don't usually make it past warm-ups. Emma forced a smile, murmuring, "Sorry, traffic." She made her way to the mat in the center of the room, trying to ignore the whispers around her. She caught fragments of conversations. "She won't last a week." Another girl, thinking she can fight. "Bet she'll cry within 5 minutes." The words stung, but Emma gritted her teeth and pressed forward. She bent down to tie her shoes, trying to blend in. Her fingers trembled slightly as she adjusted her gloves again. She wasn't here to prove them wrong, not yet. She was here for herself, for the sense of safety she'd always wanted. Every night walking home had been a reminder of vulnerability, a gnawing fear she carried like an invisible chain. She had saved up for months to join this gym, reading articles and watching videos, trying to teach herself basic defense techniques. But nothing had prepared her for the feeling of standing alone in a room full of men who had been training for years. The head coach, a tall, lean man with a buzz cut and eyes that seemed to miss nothing, clapped his hands sharply. "All right, everyone, pair up. Let's start light sparring." The room shifted as pairs quickly formed. Emma's stomach knotted tighter. And now, what? She didn't know anyone, and no one seemed interested in partnering with her. The air hummed with energy, the rhythmic thud of fists against pads filling her ears. Finally, the coach's voice broke through. "All right, first-timer, come here." Emma's heart jumped. She hesitated, then stepped forward. Every pair in the gym turned to look. Whispered bets and chuckles circulated. "She won't last a minute," someone muttered. Another snorted. Emma's cheeks burned hot, and she muttered, "Sorry," barely audible. She looked down at the floor, trying to shrink into herself. The coach's assistant, a confident man in his late 20s with broad shoulders and a grin that spelled trouble, stepped forward. "I'll go easy on you," he said, flexing his arms playfully. "Don't worry, you won't get hurt." A ripple of laughter ran through the room. Emma's stomach sank, but she nodded, raising her gloves. "Okay, I'll do my best." The assistant moved toward her, circling lightly, testing her posture, her stance. His confidence was palpable. He expected her to be hesitant, clumsy, easy, and for a moment she almost was. Her mind screamed, "Back away. Just let this be over." But her body reacted differently. Years of wrestling with her older brothers. Years of quick reflexes learned in backyard scuffles, surged without conscious thought. He threw a light jab. Emma ducked instinctively, slipping to the side. Her legs pivoted, her hands moving without thought. She hooked his arm, using his momentum to twist. The room went silent. In one swift motion, the assistant's body met the mat. His shoulder was caught in an awkward angle, his grin replaced by a sharp intake of breath. Emma froze, her heart pounding violently, palms slick with sweat inside her gloves. I'm so sorry, she whispered, stepping back, eyes wide. She hadn't intended to hurt him, hadn't even thought about control. It had been instinct, a flash of muscle memory she couldn't override. The assistant groaned, clutching his shoulder. A sharp crack had echoed across the gym, like the snap of breaking wood. Gasps filled the room. Some men stared in disbelief. Others whispered urgently. The coach rushed forward, moving with the authority of someone used to emergencies. Emma's mind raced. Oh my God, what have I done? Her chest heaved as adrenaline collided with fear. She hadn't meant to dislocate him, hadn't meant to hurt anyone. Her voice shook as she repeated apologies, small, frantic words that seemed useless against the charged silence. The assistant struggled to sit up, wincing. "It's okay," he muttered, but his face betrayed a mixture of pain and awe. Emma's stomach twisted. She realized the gym had shifted in an instant from playful, casual energy to a tense, heavy focus. The coach crouched in front of her, eyes narrowed, evaluating. "Where'd you learn that?" he asked calmly, though there was an unmistakable edge of curiosity. Emma's throat felt dry. I didn't," she stammered. "Just at home. Wrestling my brothers, mostly." Her voice was small. The coach's gaze didn't soften. Instead, it intensified, as if he could see not just her body but her potential, raw and untamed, hidden beneath nerves and apologies. Around them, the other gym members watched, some shifting uncomfortably, others wide-eyed. The assistant instructor, grimacing, muttered through clenched teeth, "She's strong." The word hung in the air, surprising everyone. Emma blinked, unable to process. It strong? She had felt nothing but fear and guilt. And yet, that instinctual motion had been undeniably powerful. Something inside her had awakened, a force she hadn't known she possessed. For the first time, Emma felt the strange, intoxicating mix of fear and power. Her hands shook as she lowered them, gloves dangling, heart hammering. She hadn't planned this. She hadn't wanted to be noticed, much less respected or feared. And yet, in that moment, she understood something fundamental. Her body had capacity beyond what she imagined. And the world, this gym, these men, this life was going to notice whether she liked it or not. The assistant slowly rose, clutching his shoulder, giving her a look that mixed pain, confusion, and grudging respect. The room remained silent, as if the collective breath of every person had been sucked away. Emma took a small step back, murmuring apologies again. The coach placed a firm hand on her shoulder. "Relax," he said. "You did fine. More than fine, actually, but we need to teach you control." Emma's mind was spinning, adrenaline still coursing through her veins. She nodded numbly, still staring at the assistant on the mat. For the first time in her life, she didn't feel small. Not entirely. Fear still lingered. Yes, but underneath it, something new had emerged. A spark, a raw, undeniable potential that frightened her almost as much as it excited her. As the coach directed her to step aside while he checked the assistant's shoulder, Emma realized she had just crossed an invisible line. She had entered this gym expecting to be timid, apologetic, overlooked. Instead, she had shocked the room, revealed a strength even she hadn't recognized, and changed the dynamic forever. In that moment, she knew her life had pivoted. Whatever happened next, she wouldn't be the same. By the time she removed her gloves and slumped against the wall, trying to calm her racing heart, she noticed whispers turning into low murmurs of respect. Eyes followed her with renewed interest. Some nodded slightly, others exchanged looks of disbelief. She realized she had unknowingly demanded recognition, and it terrified her. The coach approached again, voice calm but firm. "We'll work on technique." That was instinct, raw power, and skill, all tangled together. "You have something rare. Don't waste it." Emma swallowed, heart still pounding, nodding silently. She didn't yet know what he meant fully, but a part of her understood. That first night, standing in a gym that had once felt intimidating, she had discovered herself in a way she never expected. The lesson was clear. Emma wasn't just learning martial arts. She was learning who she was, how powerful she could be, and how a single instinct could change the perception of everyone around her. Fear, control, and strength had collided into one explosive moment, and the echoes would follow her long after she left the mat that night. The assistant instructor lay on the mat, breathing unevenly, his shoulder clearly dislocated. He clenched his teeth, groaning softly, and the gym fell into an unusual, charged silence. Nobody had expected this outcome. Emma's hands still hovered near her chest, gloves trembling as if they carried the weight of the room's collective shock. Her pulse pounded in her ears, each beat echoing the fear, guilt, and exhilaration coursing through her veins. "I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to," she whispered repeatedly, but the words felt hollow, insufficient against the reality of what had just happened. The coach knelt beside the injured man, steady hands inspecting the shoulder while keeping his eyes on Emma. "It's okay," the assistant muttered through clenched teeth, though every grimace betrayed the sharp pain radiating down his arm. The men around them shifted uncomfortably, some biting their lips, others staring with wide eyes, unable to break the tension. This was no ordinary sparring incident. It had become a moment that would be remembered, retold, and dissected. Emma felt the heat rise in her face, wishing she could disappear, wishing she could rewind time. "I didn't want this," she sighed, voice small, shaking. Her apologies fell like fragile whispers in the stillness. She stepped back instinctively, lowering her gloves and bowing her head, but the coach's gaze remained fixed on her. There was no anger there, only scrutiny, as if he were measuring the potential that had just been revealed. Potential? Emma thought. She had never considered herself special, in any way, just quiet, cautious, and often overlooked. And yet, in the span of a few seconds, she had revealed a raw power she didn't fully understand. The assistant tried to sit up, wincing, his hand clutching his shoulder. "She's strong," he muttered, surprising even himself. His voice trembled slightly, not with fear, but with a grudging respect that only comes when someone sees the truth of another's capability. Emma blinked, startled by his words. She hadn't felt strong. She had felt panic, fear, and a reflexive surge of instinct. But now, she realized that instinct had manifested into something undeniable, something others recognized even if she hadn't. The room remained silent for a long moment, all eyes on Emma. The men who had whispered doubts now exchanged glances of astonishment. Some couldn't believe what they had witnessed. Others were calculating, wondering how to approach this new dynamic. Emma's hands were still shaking, but she forced herself to stand tall, shoulders slightly squared. She couldn't hide, couldn't shrink away anymore. Something had shifted, not just in the room, but inside her. A spark had been ignited. The coach finally spoke, his voice calm but carrying authority. "Emma, step over here." She obeyed, hesitant, palms still damp with sweat. "What you just did," he began, "wasn't random. That was skill and instinct combined. Most people don't react like that under pressure. You have something rare, and if you learn to control it, you could go far." His words should have comforted her, but instead, they added a weight to her chest. She didn't know how to feel pride. All she knew was the echo of the crack, the gasps, the fear in the assistant's eyes. "Where'd you learn to move like that?" the coach asked, crouching slightly to meet her eyes. Emma's throat went dry. I wrestled my brothers," she admitted softly. "Just at home." The coach's eyes narrowed, studying her closely. He wasn't skeptical. He wasn't judging. He was calculating, weighing her potential against her current control. The silence stretched, thick and heavy. Emma wanted to disappear, but she couldn't. She had stepped into a spotlight she hadn't asked for. Meanwhile, the assistant instructor tried to rise, wincing, and muttered, "I underestimated her." Badly. The words carried a mix of pain, awe, and a reluctant acknowledgement of reality. He looked at Emma, his eyes meeting hers, and for the first time, there was no patronizing grin, no playful bravado. She realized she had shifted the balance in the room, and perhaps in the instructor himself. A strange pride flickered in her chest, but it was tangled with fear. What if she hurt someone worse next time? What if she couldn't control it? The other students in the gym began to murmur among themselves. Some were in disbelief, some whispered advice, some exchanged cautious glances as if re-evaluating everything they thought they knew. Emma could feel their eyes like weight on her shoulders. She had entered this gym to learn self-defense, to feel safe, to gain confidence. She had never wanted to dominate or impress. And yet, here she was, center stage, the girl everyone had doubted, and she didn't know how to respond. The coach motioned for everyone to resume their positions while he attended to the assistant. "We'll take a break," he said, his voice carrying calm authority. "Emma, you'll train with me for a few minutes. Control, awareness, focus. We need to understand what just happened and ensure it doesn't get out of hand." Emma's pulse hammered in her chest. Training with the coach meant scrutiny, intensity, and attention. She nodded, voice barely audible. "Yes, sir." Her palms continued to sweat inside her gloves, but she took a deep breath, trying to center herself. As she followed him to the edge of the mat, the whispers didn't stop. "She's fast. Her instincts are deadly. I wouldn't want to spar with her." Emma's mind spun with the implications. She hadn't asked for recognition, yet it was being thrust upon her in a way that felt both thrilling and terrifying. The coach knelt, pointing at her stance. "Feet," he said. "Position matters. Control comes from understanding your center of gravity, your leverage, your balance." Emma adjusted, trying to mimic him while keeping her racing heart under control. "You reacted instinctively," the coach continued. "That's good. But instinct without control is dangerous. It can hurt you. It can hurt others. We need to harness it. Focus." Emma nodded, repeating the words in her head. "Harness it. Focus." The assistant watched from the sidelines, wincing occasionally, but observing intently. He seemed to have shifted from seeing her as a novice to recognizing her potential as something exceptional. The coach moved around her, adjusting her form, guiding her through controlled movements. Emma's body began to respond, muscles remembering not just instinct, but discipline. She noticed a change in the room. The tension remained, but it was layered with respect. The men who had doubted her now watched quietly, some leaning forward. Curious, Emma realized the energy in the room had shifted entirely. She was no longer just a newcomer. She was a force to be reckoned with, though she hadn't wanted to be. After 20 minutes of drills, sweat streaming down her face, muscles trembling, Emma paused. The coach stepped back, hands on his hips. "Better," he said. "Your instincts are sharp. But remember, control, always. Your strength is impressive, but uncontrolled strength can destroy more than it helps." Emma nodded again, her mind racing with possibilities, fears, and the strange exhilaration of knowing she possessed something dangerous, yet untamed. As the gym prepared to resume full sparring, Emma glanced around. The faces of the men and women training were no longer dismissive or mocking. Instead, there were nods, subtle acknowledgments, eyes widened slightly in cautious respect. For the first time, Emma felt a mix of fear and empowerment. She had stepped into a new world, one where instinct, skill, and raw potential could collide in ways she had never imagined. And she was only at the beginning. That night, leaving the gym, Emma felt a strange combination of exhaustion and exhilaration. Her body was sore, her hands raw, but her mind was alive in a way it hadn't been before. The crack of the shoulder, the silence, the acknowledgement, it replayed in her mind over and over. She realized something profound: strength, when discovered unexpectedly, could be both terrifying and liberating. Emma had learned more about herself in one evening than she had in years. Walking home, gloves in hand, heart still racing, she understood one simple truth: nothing would ever feel the same again. She wasn't just learning martial arts. She was learning who she was, what she was capable of, and how the world would respond when that capability revealed itself. And she knew, deep down, that this was only the beginning of a story she could not yet fully imagine. The gym was quieter than usual the next day. Emma walked in, heart still racing from the events of the previous evening. Every step toward the mats felt heavier than it should have, the memory of the assistant instructor's shoulder echoing in her mind. Sweat still lingered on her gloves, as if time had preserved the panic, the adrenaline, the shock. She tried to steady her breathing. It was instinct. It was reflex. I didn't mean it, she reminded herself, but the words felt insufficient. She had changed the room, and perhaps herself, forever. As she adjusted her gloves, the assistant instructor entered, his shoulder in a sling. He approached with slow, measured steps, face pale but composed. Emma's stomach twisted with anxiety. Is he angry? Will he yell? Will everyone blame me? But instead of a reprimand, he offered her a small nod of acknowledgement. Hey, he said softly, voice low enough for only her to hear. I underestimated you. Big mistake. Emma blinked, startled by the unexpected respect. She mumbled a quiet, I'm sorry, unsure if it was for the past or the future. The coach clapped his hands, drawing attention. Today, we focus on control, he announced, voice firm, echoing across the room. Emma, you'll work with me directly. Everyone else, observe. The air in the gym shifted again. Tension mingled with curiosity. Emma's heart thumped rapidly, but there was also a flicker of determination deep inside her. She wasn't just a timid girl anymore. She had been seen, and her instincts had revealed something undeniable. As Emma followed the coach to the center of the mat, she noticed the other students' eyes on her. Some avoided direct contact, some stared openly, and a few whispered among themselves. The assistant instructor lingered on the edge of the room, watching silently, his face unreadable. The coach motioned for her to stand in a defensive stance, feet planted, hands raised. Relax your shoulders, he instructed. Focus on balance. Control comes from knowing your center of gravity and reading your opponent's movements. Emma adjusted, feeling the strange combination of tension and excitement. The coach moved around her slowly, correcting posture, adjusting angles, demonstrating precise movements. Strength without control is dangerous, he said. You have power, yes. But power must be guided, tempered. Otherwise, it's chaos. Emma nodded, absorbing every word. She had never realized that control could be as vital as raw power. The previous night, her instincts had saved her and injured another. Now she began to understand the fine line between instinct and precision, between skill and recklessness. After a few minutes, the coach stopped and faced her directly. You reacted well instinctively, But instinct alone is not enough. We need to refine it, direct it, and understand the consequences. Do you understand? Emma swallowed hard. Yes, sir, she replied, voice steadying despite the lingering fear. The coach's eyes softened briefly, though his scrutiny remained. Good. Then let's start with drills. Light contact, deliberate motion, awareness. Move slowly, anticipate, don't react blindly. Emma followed, stepping into a new rhythm she had never known. The first few drills were awkward. Emma's body had reacted naturally before, but now she was conscious of every movement. Every punch, every shift of weight, every step demanded focus. The assistant watched silently, occasionally wincing as he adjusted his sling. Other students observed intently, some taking mental notes, others leaning forward in disbelief. Emma felt like every fiber of her being was being tested. She had raw power, yes, but could she control it under pressure? That question drove her, sharpened her awareness, and sparked an unfamiliar excitement. As the drills progressed, Emma began to feel a rhythm, a strange harmony between instinct and control. Her body remembered reflexes, but her mind guided them now. The coach introduced more complex combinations, requiring her to read subtle shifts. In posture, anticipate movement, and adjust her balance accordingly. Emma's confidence grew with each successful attempt. She began to sense the weight of her actions, the responsibility of her power. A flicker of pride mingled with anxiety, and she realized she was learning not just martial arts, but self-mastery. Meanwhile, the assistant instructor approached cautiously. "Can I try?" he asked, voice measured. The coach nodded. Emma's stomach twisted. Facing him again, now fully aware of her own strength, was daunting. But something inside her steadied. She raised her gloves, breath steadying. The assistant moved toward her, testing lightly, and for the first time, Emma didn't react blindly. She controlled each movement, measured each step, redirected force without unnecessary aggression. The crack from the previous day remained in her mind as a warning, a lesson, and a source of focus. The sparring session was slow at first, deliberate. Emma's movements were precise, guided by the coach's earlier instructions. The assistant pushed slightly, testing her limits, but she responded with calculated motions rather than instinct alone. The room watched in silence, witnessing a transformation. What had been raw and uncontrolled was now refined, deliberate, and powerful. Emma felt the thrill of mastery, the realization that she could harness her instincts rather than fear them. The assistant, grimacing at times, nodded with subtle approval. This was no longer a one-sided demonstration. It was a partnership, a test of skill and respect. As the session continued, the coach introduced new challenges. Anticipate more. Feel the balance shift. Respond before the movement completes, he instructed. Emma's muscles ached, sweat poured down her face, but her mind sharpened. Every decision, every movement required focus. She realized that true strength wasn't about overwhelming force. It was about precision, awareness, and restraint. The assistant pushed her, feinting attacks, testing her reaction speed. Each time, Emma's response was measured, controlled, and deliberate. Her body obeyed, her instincts aligned with conscious thought, and the room began to hum with recognition of her emerging skill. By the end of the session, Emma was exhausted, yet exhilarated. Her body shook from exertion, her hands raw inside the gloves, but her mind was clearer than it had ever been. She had faced her own power, controlled it, and discovered a harmony she hadn't known existed. The assistant stood across from her, offering a nod of respect. "You've got control now," he said quietly. Not many can do that. Emma felt a small smile tug at her lips. She had earned something that night. Not victory, not admiration, but understanding. The coach clapped his hands, drawing attention. "Good work today?" Emma, you've made progress, but this is just the beginning. Control, awareness, and focus, remember them. He turned to the rest of the class. And for the rest of you, let this be a lesson. Talent can appear unexpectedly. Respect it and learn from it. Emma nodded, feeling a surge of confidence. For the first time, she understood the duality of power. It could be dangerous, frightening, and awe-inspiring. But with discipline, it became something entirely different. After the session, the assistant approached Emma, voice softer now. "You surprised me," he admitted. "I thought it would be easy. I was wrong." Emma laughed nervously, shrugging. "I didn't mean to hurt you," she said, voice earnest. "It just happened." He smiled faintly. "I know, and that's why you're different. Most people panic. Most people overreact. You didn't. You controlled yourself when it counted." Emma felt a warm glow of pride mixed with lingering fear. She realized that acknowledgement, earned through skill and restraint, was far more powerful than fear or doubt. Walking home that night, Emma's mind replayed every detail. The assistant's shoulder, the coach's guidance, the silent attention. Of the room awe that pressed into her memory like a lesson etched in fire. She understood now that her journey wouldn't be about simply learning martial arts. It would be about mastering herself, understanding her instincts, and learning how to channel them without harm. The balance between power and control had become her new obsession, and she welcomed it, even as it scared her. The streetlights cast long shadows as she walked, gloves slung over her shoulder, muscles aching but spirit alive. The world outside felt different, sharper, filled with possibilities she had never considered. She had faced fear, discovered power, and survived both. And in that survival, she found a spark of something profound, confidence. Real confidence, forged in sweat, fear, and the acknowledgement of her own ability. Emma knew, without doubt, that this was only the beginning of a journey that would challenge everything she thought she knew about herself. The next morning, Emma arrived at the gym, feeling an unusual combination of nerves and anticipation. Her muscles still ached from yesterday's session, but her mind buzzed with clarity. Something had shifted in her, not just her skill, but her awareness. She had glimpsed a new version of herself, one capable of controlling instincts she hadn't realized existed. As she tied her shoes, adjusting her gloves, she glanced around the room. The gym felt different today, charged with curiosity and a subtle tension. Whispers traveled through the air, low but insistent. "She's no joke. She controls herself. I wouldn't spar with her." Emma's eyes flicked to the assistant instructor, who was already warming up at the edge of the mat. His shoulder had been treated, wrapped carefully, and he moved cautiously, still testing it. When their eyes met, he gave a small nod, an acknowledgement that seemed to say more than words could convey. He had gone from skepticism to respect, and somehow that gave Emma both comfort and unease. "I didn't ask for this attention," she thought, "but I can't ignore it either." The coach clapped his hands to gather everyone's attention. "All right, everyone," he said firmly. "Today is about focus. Emma, you'll start with me again. Assistant, you'll observe." His gaze lingered on her, measuring, evaluating. Emma stepped forward, gloves raised, and immediately felt the weight of expectation. Not just from the coach, not just from the assistant, but from the entire gym. Every movement she made would now be under scrutiny, and the room seemed to hum with anticipation. The coach began slowly, repeating yesterday's exercises, but with more complexity. "Focus on control, awareness, and anticipation," he instructed. "Your power is undeniable, but it is the mind that directs it. Without guidance, instinct becomes dangerous." Emma nodded, concentrating intently. She began to feel the rhythm of her own body, the way muscles responded when consciously directed. Her movements, once jerky and reactive, became deliberate and fluid. Each punch, each pivot, each shift of weight carried purpose. The gym's energy seemed to change, as if the room itself recognized her evolution. The assistant watched closely, occasionally nodding. "She's learning faster than I expected," he muttered quietly to a fellow student. His words carried both surprise and admiration. Emma overheard only a fragment, but it was enough to ignite a spark of confidence she hadn't known she possessed. "Maybe I can do this. Maybe I can really control this power," she thought, letting the thought settle like fire in her chest. The coach introduced controlled sparring exercises. Emma paired with different students, practicing precise movements and responses. Each interaction tested her ability to balance instinct with awareness. Occasionally, a student would underestimate her, throwing a half-hearted jab, and she would redirect, counter, or evade effortlessly. The room's whispering grew, a mixture of astonishment and respect. Emma realized she was no longer just surviving, she was commanding presence without even trying. Her mind raced with the implications, but she stayed grounded, following the coach's instructions and guiding her own instincts. Midway through the session, the assistant instructor stepped forward. "May I try again?" he asked, voice calm but deliberate. Emma's stomach tightened. Facing him again was intimidating. His respect from yesterday had changed the dynamic entirely, but fear still lingered. She raised her gloves, inhaling deeply to steady herself. As he approached, feinting attacks, she felt her body respond not with panic, but with awareness. Each motion was precise, deliberate, controlled. The crack from yesterday, once a haunting memory, now served as a reminder, a caution, and a focus point. The sparring session unfolded slowly, almost ceremoniously. Each movement, each adjustment was deliberate. Emma discovered a strange exhilaration. In this control, the ability to channel instinct without allowing it to dominate. Her mind worked alongside her body, predicting and responding, guiding rather than reacting. The assistant tested her limits, pressing slightly, feinting, adjusting angles, and every time, Emma responded with a calm, precise action. The room remained silent, the tension palpable. Every student watched intently, witnessing the transformation, from raw instinct to deliberate mastery. After several rounds, the coach called for a pause. "Excellent work today," he said, voice steady but firm. "Emma, you're progressing faster than anticipated. But remember, control is not just physical. It is mental, emotional, and situational. You must respect your strength at all times. Never let instinct override judgment." Emma nodded, her hands still raised, palms damp inside the gloves. She understood. Strength without wisdom could be dangerous. The previous day had taught her that lesson violently. Now she felt the weight of responsibility pressing down, but also a growing confidence that she could handle it. The assistant approached her again, softer this time. "You're different," he admitted. "Most people panic or overreact. You guide yourself. That's rare. Respect it, because not everyone can." Emma's cheeks flushed. She felt a mixture of pride, fear, and disbelief. "I didn't ask for this recognition," she reminded herself, but she couldn't deny its impact. The acknowledgement, though quiet, was meaningful. She realized that being powerful was one thing, but being respected for it, without arrogance, was something entirely different. Later, during a brief water break, Emma sat on the edge of the mat, gloves in hand, reflecting. The room buzzed with subdued energy. Students whispered in awe, some nervously avoiding her gaze, others daring to meet. Emma understood that perception had changed overnight. She had walked in yesterday as a newcomer, timid and apologetic. Today, she was no longer invisible. Her instincts, once raw and uncontrolled, had been refined, guided, and acknowledged. The reality was thrilling and terrifying. She felt a strange duality, fear intertwined with empowerment. The coach returned, motioning for everyone to gather. "Emma," he said, voice carrying authority, "today's work is only the beginning. Your instincts are valuable, yes, but refinement and control make you formidable. Remember, discipline is your greatest tool. Strength without control is useless, even dangerous." Emma absorbed the words, nodding silently. She felt a strange calm settle over her, as if a new layer of awareness had been added to her consciousness. The room seemed to recognize this change, a quiet acknowledgement resonating through every pair of eyes. As the session ended, the assistant approached once more. "You surprised me yesterday, and today you impressed me," he said. Emma offered. A small smile, shrugging. "I didn't want to hurt anyone. It just happened." He shook his head. "I know. And that's why you're rare. Not many can harness instinct like that." His words resonated deeply, and for the first time, Emma considered that her abilities weren't a curse or accident. They were potential waiting to be cultivated. Walking home that evening, gloves slung over her shoulder, Emma replayed the day in her mind. The drills, the sparring, the silent observation of the gym, each moment reinforced what she had begun to understand. Strength alone was insufficient. Control, awareness, and discipline were what defined true capability. She realized that the gym, the coach, and even the assistant had become mirrors, reflecting possibilities she hadn't considered. For the first time, she didn't feel small or invisible. She felt capable. The streets of Dallas felt different under the evening lights. Shadows stretched long, mingling with the glow of neon signs. Emma walked briskly, heart still pounding, but with a new sense of purpose. Her journey was no longer about fear or avoidance. It was about mastery, discovery, and transformation. The incident with the assistant's shoulder was no longer just a memory of panic. It was a catalyst, a lesson, and a challenge. She understood that she had crossed a threshold. Her instincts had been revealed, and now she had the chance to refine them. As she approached her apartment, she took a deep breath, reflecting on the day. Every movement, every glance, every reaction in the gym had taught her something profound. She had glimpsed the potential within herself, and it terrified and exhilarated her simultaneously. For the first time, she believed in her own power, not recklessly, but consciously. And in that belief, she found the seed of confidence that would carry her forward into challenges she could not yet imagine. The next week at the gym, Emma arrived with a sense of anticipation she hadn't felt before. Her muscles still bore the soreness from previous sessions, but her mind felt sharp, alert, alive. She adjusted her gloves, stretching her fingers carefully, and looked around the room. The atmosphere was different. Now curious eyes followed her every move. Whispers floated like hesitant ripples, and the energy that had once felt intimidating now seemed expectant. Emma understood that the gym had begun to see her differently, and a small, tentative pride settled in her chest. The assistant instructor, now moving more confidently despite his previously injured shoulder, approached her quietly. "Ready?" he asked, voice low but steady. Emma nodded, raising her gloves automatically, a ritual that had become second nature. "I'm ready," she told herself, not just for the sparring, but for the challenge, for the growth. He mirrored her stance, circling slowly. The tension between them was palpable, but there was also a quiet respect. This wasn't a test of dominance, it was a lesson, a dance of skill, awareness, and control. The coach clapped his hands to gather everyone's attention. "Today is about precision and anticipation," he announced. "Emma, you will pair with multiple students in controlled sparring. Focus on control and strategy. Assistant, observe. And guide. The other students exchanged glances, some nervous, some intrigued. Emma felt the weight of expectation settle on her shoulders again, but she welcomed it. She had tasted her own potential, and the thought of refining it thrilled. Her first partner, a young man with a wiry build, approached cautiously. Emma focused on balance, reading his movements, anticipating his punches. For the first time, she realized how much her awareness had sharpened. Her body responded deliberately, redirecting force, maintaining posture, and avoiding unnecessary contact. Each movement felt purposeful, measured. She wasn't just defending herself. She was learning to control the energy around her, to guide it rather than react blindly. The other students watched, some leaning forward in fascination. Realizing that Emma was no longer just a newcomer, she was a presence. The coach moved among them, adjusting stances, offering guidance, praising controlled responses. "Good, Emma," he said. "See the space, feel the weight, anticipate. That is control." Emma nodded, absorbing the words. Each drill refined. Her instincts, blending reflex with deliberate action. She felt a growing sense of mastery. The initial fear that had consumed her during the first sparring session had evolved into awareness, and awareness was empowering. She no longer feared her own strength. She understood it could be guided, harnessed, and directed safely. Midway through the session, the assistant instructor stepped forward again. "May I challenge you?" he asked quietly. Emma's stomach twisted at the thought, but she nodded. Facing him again was intimidating, yet exciting. The first day had been raw instinct. Now it was refined skill. He circled, feinting, testing her reactions. Each motion required focus, balance, and control. Emma responded deliberately, redirecting energy, maintaining posture, anticipating his movements. The gym watched in silence, witnessing the transformation. From instinct-driven reaction to conscious mastery. Their sparring became a lesson in flow. The assistant adjusted his attacks, pressing slightly, then withdrawing, forcing Emma to read, respond, and adapt. She felt the thrill of controlled power, the sensation of instinct and skill converging into fluid motion. Sweat poured down her. Face, muscles screamed in protest, but her mind was alive, calculating, aware. Each time she successfully predicted his movement, she felt a quiet surge of pride. For the first time, she understood that strength without guidance was chaos, but strength with awareness was formidable. After several rounds, the coach called a pause. "Excellent work," he said, voice carrying authority. "Emma, you're progressing faster than expected. But remember, control extends beyond physical movements. It is mental, emotional, and situational. Respect your strength at all times. Instinct is a tool, not a weapon." Emma nodded, absorbing each word. She understood now that true mastery wasn't about overpowering others. It was about precision, awareness, and responsibility. The assistant approached again, voice softer, respectful. "You've improved," he said. "Yesterday, it was raw instinct. Today, you've demonstrated control. Not many can do that." Emma's cheeks flushed. She felt a mixture of pride and disbelief. She hadn't sought recognition, but it was now a natural part of her reality. Her skills weren't just hers. They were visible, undeniable, and respected. The acknowledgement strengthened her resolve, yet she remained grounded, remembering the lessons of control and responsibility. During the next drill, the coach introduced new complexity. Multiple attacks, feints, and distractions. Emma's body had to respond while her mind calculated every option. Her reflexes, honed from instinct, now blended seamlessly with conscious thought. She felt the thrill of mastery, the ability to control not just her body, but the energy in the room. The Assistant tested her limits, pressing harder, moving unpredictably, yet Emma adapted with precision. The other students observed in awe, witnessing a rare combination of instinct, skill, and discipline. By the end of the session, Emma's arms were exhausted, her body trembling, yet her mind was sharper than ever. She realized that she had moved. Beyond fear, she had embraced responsibility. Her instinctual power had been honed, her control deepened, and her awareness expanded. The gym's energy had shifted. Once again, students whispered quietly, some in admiration, others in cautious respect. Emma understood that she had earned a presence in the room, a recognition that went beyond talent alone. The coach gathered everyone for a final briefing. Today, Emma demonstrated what instinct guided by awareness can achieve. Strength without control is meaningless, but skill refined through discipline is formidable. Remember this. Power is not just physical. It is awareness, precision, and responsibility. His gaze lingered on Emma, a quiet acknowledgement of potential yet to be fully realized. The assistant nodded in agreement, his respect evident. Emma felt a sense of accomplishment, yet also the weight of expectations and possibilities. She understood that her journey had only begun. Walking home that evening, gloves in hand, Emma replayed the day in her mind. She thought of each drill, each movement, each calculated response. The assistant's shoulder, the coach's guidance, the silent observation of the gym hall had combined into a lesson etched into her muscles and mind. She understood now that mastery required more than instinct. It required awareness, control, and discipline. The thrill of this realization pulsed through her veins, mingling with a quiet sense of pride. She had begun to understand who she was becoming. The streets of Dallas stretched long under the evening lights, shadows blending with neon glows. Emma walked briskly, muscles sore, mind racing with thoughts of technique, strategy, and self-mastery. The incident with the assistant's shoulder had transformed from a source of fear into a lesson in responsibility and control. She felt a new confidence simmering inside her, a quiet, determined awareness that she could harness her power safely, intentionally, and effectively. For the first time, she believed in herself in a way she had never known. As she reached her apartment, she paused, taking a deep breath. She had faced fear, discovered capability, and learned to direct it consciously. The gym, the coach, and even the assistant had reflected possibilities she hadn't considered. She understood now that she was more than timid or cautious. She was capable of strength, control, and growth. And in that understanding, she found both excitement and a quiet sense of responsibility. Her journey was far from over, but the first steps had already reshaped her perception of herself and her place in the world. Emma stepped into the gym that evening with a sense of anticipation that had become familiar. Her muscles were still recovering from the previous week's intensive sessions, but her mind was alert, focused, and restless. She adjusted her gloves, stretched deliberately, and scanned the room. There was a charged energy today, an unspoken awareness that something different was about to happen. The students were quieter than usual, exchanging glances and murmurs as she passed. Emma felt the weight of their attention, not with fear, but with a strange sense of purpose. The assistant instructor was already in position, his shoulder fully recovered, moving with cautious confidence. He met her gaze and gave a subtle nod. Emma returned it, heart racing, not with fear this time, but with a steady determination. She had learned control, awareness, and discipline, but today felt like a test of all she had gained. The coach clapped his hands sharply, drawing everyone's attention. "Today," he said, voice calm but commanding, "we will integrate all the lessons learned so far. Emma, you will face a series of controlled sparring challenges with multiple opponents. This is not just about strength. It is about awareness, anticipation, and decision-making. Emma's stomach tightened. Multiple opponents? Her mind immediately raced through strategies, stances, and potential scenarios. She raised her gloves instinctively, centering herself. The coach motioned for 3 students to approach, each taller and more experienced than her. The gym seemed to hold its collective breath as she faced them. For the first time, the whispers weren't skeptical. They were tentative, filled with anticipation. Emma took a deep breath, reminding herself of the lessons drilled into her muscles. And mind, control, awareness, anticipation. The first opponent moved quickly, throwing light jabs. Emma responded deliberately, her body guided by conscious awareness. She dodged, redirected, and countered with precise movements, each calculated to maintain balance and control. The second opponent feinted, forcing her to anticipate rather than react blindly. The third attempted a sweeping kick, and Emma pivoted, expertly maintaining her center of gravity and keeping her stance solid. Each movement was a test, each action a lesson in controlled power. The gym watched silently, tension thick in the air. The assistant instructor observed from the side, his eyes sharp. Occasionally, he murmured advice under his breath, corrections and suggestions for anticipation and positioning. Emma absorbed every detail, blending it seamlessly with her instinct and control. The room seemed to contract around her awareness, every sound, every movement becoming data to process. Sweat poured down her face, muscles screamed, but her mind was precise, focused, and unflinching. For the first time, she realized that strength alone was insufficient. Her advantage lay in awareness, control, and adaptability. After a few rounds, the coach raised his hand. "Excellent," he said. "Now we increase complexity. Add unpredictability. Force adaptability. Emma, this is your next challenge. Timed sparring with multiple opponents attacking simultaneously." Emma's pulse quickened. Simultaneous attacks? Her mind raced, calculating angles, distances, and strategies. She raised her gloves, knees slightly bent, heart steadying despite the adrenaline. The assistant stepped forward, signaling readiness. The students forming the challenge shifted into position, faces serious, movements deliberate. The tension in the gym was palpable. The sparring began. 2 opponents attacked at once, jabs and kicks flying. Emma moved with precision, redirecting, energy, pivoting, and maintaining her stance. Her mind calculated every shift in balance, every movement's potential consequences. She began to feel the thrill of mastery, the ability to anticipate, control, and respond simultaneously. The assistant observed intently, occasionally offering a nod of approval. Each successful maneuver strengthened Emma's confidence, reinforcing the lessons she had learned. She felt her instincts and awareness harmonize, creating a fluid rhythm she had never experienced before. Midway through the session, the coach added another layer. "Distractions," he said, signaling 2 additional students to act unpredictably. Emma's world expanded 5 attackers, all moving differently, testing her ability to process multiple variables simultaneously. Her muscles responded instinctively, but now guided by conscious thought. Every pivot, block, and redirection was deliberate. Sweat streamed down her face, but her breathing remained controlled. The thrill of controlled chaos electrified her senses. For the first time, Emma truly felt the depth of her power when coupled with discipline. The assistant instructor moved closer, offering subtle guidance. "Watch the center of mass, anticipate movement, maintain awareness," he instructed. Quietly, Emma absorbed every word, executing precise motions, redirecting force, and maintaining her balance. The gym seemed to hold its collective breath, observing her in a rare display of skill. The other students whispered softly, some in awe, others in disbelief. Emma realized she had become not just a participant, but a focal point of attention. Demonstration of what instinct, discipline, and control could achieve. After several grueling minutes, the coach called the session to a halt. Emma's chest heaved, muscles trembled, and sweat soaked her gloves and uniform. The room remained silent for a heartbeat before the murmurs began, whispers of admiration, disbelief, and respect. Emma lowered her gloves slowly, heart pounding, realizing the enormity of what she had accomplished. She had faced multiple opponents simultaneously and emerged controlled, precise, and uninjured. Her instincts, once raw and uncontrolled, had been honed into a formidable skill set. The coach approached, voice calm but firm. "Emma," he said, "you've demonstrated exceptional growth, control, awareness, anticipation, all are evident. But remember, mastery is never complete. Always refine, always observe, always respect your power. Today, you have set an example not only for yourself, but for everyone in this gym. Never forget that discipline is the foundation of strength." Emma nodded, absorbing every word. She understood that true power was more than physical. It was mental, emotional, and strategic. The assistant instructor stepped forward, smiling faintly. "You've come a long way since your first day," he said. "I underestimated you initially. But today, you've proven that instinct guided by awareness can be unstoppable. Few can achieve what you just did." Emma felt a quiet pride mixed with lingering humility. She hadn't sought recognition, but acknowledgement of her skill and control reinforced her growing confidence. She realized that respect earned through skill and discipline was more powerful than any instinctual advantage alone. As the gym emptied, Emma lingered, reflecting on the intensity of the session. Her body ached, her gloves were worn, and her uniform was damp with sweat. But her mind was alive, alert, and exhilarated. She understood that her journey was far from over. Each challenge revealed not only her skill, but her potential to grow even further. Strength without control had once been dangerous. Now, guided by awareness and discipline, it had become precise, formidable, and empowering. Walking home that night, gloves in hand, Emma's thoughts raced. She replayed each movement, each calculation, each interaction. She had faced multiple threats simultaneously and maintained control, proving to herself that instinct, when guided by discipline, could be transformative. Her confidence was growing, tempered by humility and awareness of responsibility. 4. The first time, she truly believed in her own capability, not recklessly, but deliberately, consciously, and with purpose. The streets of Dallas stretched long under the evening glow, shadows mingling with the flickering lights of passing cars. Emma walked briskly, muscles sore but spirit alive, replaying the day's lessons in her mind. She understood now that true mastery wasn't about brute strength, it was about awareness, precision, control, and adaptability. She had begun to harmonize instinct with skill, transforming raw potential into practical, formidable capability. And she knew that every step forward would bring new challenges, new opportunities, and new growth. As she reached her apartment, she paused, taking a deep breath. The day had tested her in ways she hadn't anticipated, but she had emerged stronger, more confident, and more aware of her power. Her journey was far from over, but the lessons of discipline, anticipation, and control had solidified. Emma understood that she was no longer the timid newcomer she had been. She was evolving into someone capable, deliberate, and formidable. And in that understanding, she found both excitement and determination for the challenges yet to come. The gym smelled of sweat and anticipation when Emma arrived the next evening. Her gloves were worn, her uniform slightly faded from repeated use, but her mind was sharp and alert. She had spent the previous night replaying every drill, every controlled movement, and the memory of her growth filled her with a mix of excitement and anxiety. Today felt different, not just another practice session, but a challenge, a test of everything she had learned so far. Her heart thumped in rhythm with the electric energy buzzing in the room. The coach clapped his hands to gather the students. "Tonight," he announced, "we will simulate real-time, high-pressure scenarios. Emma, you will face a combination of attacks from multiple opponents, some predictable, some unexpected. This will test your instincts, awareness, control, and adaptability under pressure." Emma's chest tightened. The stakes had escalated. Her mind raced with strategies, stances, and calculations. She felt the familiar thrill of anticipation, tempered with the hum of anxiety. This was more than skill. It was awareness, judgment, and composure under intense pressure. The assistant instructor was already in position, his eyes calm but observant. He gave her a subtle nod. Emma returned it, raising her gloves instinctively, grounding herself with deep, measured breaths. She had come a long way since her first day. The raw instinct that had frightened everyone had transformed into controlled power. And yet, she knew that this session would test her in ways she hadn't yet experienced. The room seemed to shrink around her focus, the gym's energy tightening with anticipation. The first wave of attackers approached 3 experienced students, fast and precise. Emma adjusted her stance, focusing on her breathing, her balance, and the rhythm of her own body. The first jab came, and she responded with a controlled redirection, pivoting and maintaining her center of gravity. The second moved unpredictably, and she anticipated, sliding aside and countering lightly. The third came from an unexpected angle, but Emma adjusted mid-motion, executing a precise block and redirection. The gym watched in near silence, tension vibrating in the air, everyone keenly aware that this was no ordinary sparring session. The coach observed silently, his eyes sharp, taking in every pivot, shift, and movement. "Good," he murmured. Though his tone carried more than simple praise, it was acknowledgement of precision under pressure. The assistant instructor circled nearby, offering subtle guidance without intruding. Emma felt her focus sharpen, muscles working seamlessly with awareness. She realized that instinct and discipline had finally merged. Every reaction was deliberate, measured, and guided by her conscious control. She was no longer reacting blindly. She was orchestrating movement, predicting attacks, and adapting dynamically. After several minutes, the coach signaled for a pause. Emma's chest heaved, sweat soaking her uniform and gloves. Her muscles trembled, but her mind was alert, processing every detail of the encounter. "Impressive," the coach said, voice firm but calm. "You've maintained control under multiple pressures, adapting and anticipating. But now we increase difficulty. Expect deception, rapid shifts, and unpredictability. This is the final stage tonight." Emma's stomach tightened. This was the culmination of her training, so far a true test of instinct guided by control. 2 more students joined, moving unpredictably. The assistant instructor stepped closer, signaling readiness. Emma raised her gloves, feeling the weight of responsibility and expectation. The gym seemed to hold its collective breath as the sparring began again. Attacks came from multiple directions, some feints, some deliberate, all fast and coordinated. Emma's body responded instinctively, yet every motion was calculated. She pivoted, blocked, redirected, and countered with fluid precision. Sweat stung her eyes, but her mind was razor-sharp. Each decision was conscious, deliberate, and aware of consequences. Midway through the session, the intensity increased further. The coach introduced simulated distractions, sudden movements, abrupt noises, and changing attack patterns. Emma's focus sharpened, her awareness extending beyond her immediate opponents. She could feel shifts in energy, anticipate attacks before they fully materialized, and respond fluidly. Her movements became almost choreographed, instinct and awareness perfectly aligned. The gym watched in astonishment. Whispers and murmurs spread through the room. "She's unstoppable. I've never seen control like that. Her awareness is incredible." Emma felt a surge of confidence, tempered with the gravity of responsibility. The assistant instructor engaged more directly, feinting, testing her reactions, and observing how she adapted under pressure. Emma responded with precise blocks, calculated pivots, and controlled counters. The room felt electric, tension building with every passing second. For the first time, she sensed not just the physical aspect of control, but the mental edge, the ability to anticipate, to predict, to respond strategically. Her instincts had matured into a refined skill, a combination of awareness, timing, and judgment. Finally, after several grueling minutes, the coach called the session to an end. Emma's body shook from exertion, muscles trembling, gloves damp with sweat. Her chest heaved, heart racing, but her mind was clear, alert, and alive. Silence filled the room for a moment before murmurs of admiration and respect broke out. The students' expressions ranged from disbelief to quiet awe. Emma lowered her gloves slowly, feeling the weight of accomplishment settle on her shoulders. She had faced a high-pressure, complex challenge and emerged controlled, aware, and composed. The coach stepped forward, voice calm but commanding. "Emma, tonight you demonstrated what true mastery begins to look like. Strength without control is useless. Control without awareness is incomplete. You have learned to harmonize instinct, discipline, and anticipation. This is not the end, but a milestone. Remember, mastery is continuous, evolving, and requires constant vigilance." Emma nodded, absorbing every word. She felt a profound sense of growth, physically, mentally, and emotionally. The assistant instructor approached, face serious but respectful. "You've transformed since day one," he said. "Your instincts, once unpredictable, are now guided, refined, and formidable. Few can achieve what you just did. Respect yourself, because others certainly do." Emma felt a warmth in her chest, a mixture of pride, humility, and determination. She realized that her journey had taken her far beyond simple self-defense. She had begun to understand her own capability, responsibility, and power. As the gym emptied, Emma lingered, gloves in hand, reflecting on the intensity of the session. Each challenge, each sparring sequence, each controlled response had solidified her growth. She had faced complex, high-pressure scenarios and maintained composure, precision, and awareness. Her instincts had evolved into skill, and her awareness had become her greatest ally. She understood now that mastery required continuous effort, humility, and focus, and that her journey had only just begun. Walking home that night, Emma replayed every movement, every pivot, every strategic choice. She felt exhilarated, empowered, and grounded simultaneously. Strength alone had once been a liability. Now, with awareness and control, it was formidable. The incident with the assistant's shoulder, once a source of fear, was now a distant memory, transformed into a lesson in responsibility and precision. She understood her potential, and more importantly, she recognized the responsibility that came with it. The streets of Dallas stretched before her, shadows merging with the warm glow of streetlights. Emma walked briskly, muscles sore but heart steady, gloves slung over her shoulder. Her mind was alive with strategies, insights, and reflections. The gym, the coach, and the assistant had become mirrors, reflecting both her potential and the path she needed to follow. She was no longer timid or reactive. She was deliberate, aware, and capable. And as she reached her apartment, she knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges, new growth, and new opportunities to test everything she had learned. Emma paused briefly at her door, taking a deep breath. The week had pushed her to limits she hadn't imagined, but she had emerged stronger, more focused, and more confident. Her instincts were no longer uncontrolled impulses. They were tools, guided by awareness and discipline. She understood that her journey was far from over, but the path ahead was clear. Continue learning, continue refining, and continue mastering. Herself, the spark ignited in the gym, had become a fire within, one she was determined to nurture and wield responsibly. The gym was silent that evening, the low hum of fluorescent lights blending with the occasional scrape of sneakers on mats. Emma walked in, gloves in hand, heart steady but alert. Today was different. She could feel it in the air, the anticipation, the weight of expectation, and the energy of transformation. She had come a long way since the first day, from timid uncertainty to controlled, aware, and deliberate. But tonight, she knew, would test everything she had learned. This was more than practice. It was a culmination. The coach stepped forward, eyes scanning the room. Tonight, Emma will face a challenge that integrates everything she has learned. Awareness, control, anticipation, adaptability. You have demonstrated progress beyond expectation, but mastery is not proven until it is tested under pressure. He gestured toward the assistant instructor and 3 of the gym's most experienced students, all poised and ready. Emma, this is your final test. Treat it as a demonstration of skill, not aggression. Remember control. Emma nodded, inhaling deeply, letting the words settle in her mind. The assistant instructor approached quietly. Ready? He asked, voice calm, yet edged with anticipation. Emma raised her gloves instinctively, centering herself. Yes, she replied, her voice steady. There was no arrogance in her tone, only focus. She knew that tonight's challenge was more than physical. It was mental, emotional, and strategic. The students formed a semicircle around her, their eyes curious, some tense, all aware that something extraordinary was about to unfold. The first wave of attacks came simultaneously. 3 opponents moved toward her in perfect synchronization, testing her balance, awareness, and reaction time. Emma's body responded fluidly. She pivoted, blocked, and redirected with deliberate precision, every motion guided by anticipation and control. Her instincts, once raw and uncontrolled, now flowed seamlessly with conscious calculation. Sweat streamed down her face, but her mind remained razor-sharp, observing openings, shifts in weight, and potential vulnerabilities. She felt the thrill of mastery, the exhilarating certainty that her actions were deliberate, effective, and controlled. The assistant instructor engaged more directly, testing her adaptability. He feinted, moved unpredictably, and adjusted attacks in real time, creating a dynamic and challenging environment. Emma responded with precision, her eyes scanning every motion, her body shifting instinctively yet deliberately. Each block, pivot, and counter was purposeful. The gym watched in awe as Emma orchestrated the chaos around her with grace, skill, and poise. Whispers rippled across the room. She's incredible. I've never seen control like that. Emma felt a mixture of pride and focus. She wasn't performing for approval. She was demonstrating the culmination of discipline, awareness, and instinct honed into skill. Midway through the challenge, the coach introduced a sudden twist, simulated distractions. 2 additional students moved unpredictably, creating a flurry of attacks from multiple angles. Emma's awareness expanded to encompass the entire room. Her movements became a dance of anticipation, precision, and control. Each feint was met with calculated adjustment. Each strike redirected with deliberate force. Her heart pounded, muscles screamed, yet her mind was clear, agile, and decisive. The thrill of controlled chaos coursed through her veins. The assistant circled, nodding subtly with approval. "Good," he murmured under his breath. Emma absorbed every motion, every cue, every subtle shift in energy. She felt an unprecedented harmony between instinct and conscious decision-making. Her body moved freely, efficiently, and with purpose. The once unpredictable instincts that had caused fear and injury were now tools she could wield with precision. The gym, silent in observation, seemed to collectively recognize the transformation. Emma was no longer the timid newcomer. She was a controlled, aware, and formidable presence. As the final round approached, the intensity increased. The coach clapped his hands sharply. Final phase. Anticipate, adapt, and dominate within control. No mistakes. Emma squared her stance, gloves raised, breathing steady. The opponents approached, coordinated, moving rapidly and unpredictably. Emma's mind processed the incoming attacks like a living algorithm, predicting, adjusting, and responding. Her movements were fluid, precise, and powerful, yet controlled. Every block, pivot, and redirection demonstrated not just strength, but judgment. The thrill of mastery surged through her. The challenge escalated further as the assistant instructor launched a complex feint from an unexpected angle. Emma adjusted mid-motion, redirecting energy, maintaining balance, and countering strategically. Her focus was complete, her instincts harmonized with conscious thought. Jim watched in silent amazement. For the first time, the room seemed to recognize not just her skill, but her control, awareness, and presence. Emma felt a quiet pride, tempered with humility. She understood that power without guidance was dangerous, but mastery, true mastery, was transformative. Finally, the coach called the session to a halt. Emma's chest heaved, muscles trembling, gloves damp with sweat. Silence filled the gym for a heartbeat before murmurs of awe and admiration broke out. Students exchanged glances, their expressions a mix of disbelief, respect, and inspiration. Emma lowered her gloves slowly, heart pounding, realizing the magnitude of her accomplishment. She had faced multiple high-level threats simultaneously, maintaining composure, precision, and awareness. Her instincts, once raw and uncontrolled, were now formidable tools under deliberate control. The coach approached, voice calm but firm. "Emma," he said, "you have demonstrated the culmination of instinct, discipline, and awareness. Your mastery is not complete mastery, never is, but tonight you have proven that true strength comes from control, observation, and responsibility. Remember, power is meaningless without awareness, and control is meaningless without humility. You have set an example not just for yourself, but for everyone here." Emma nodded, absorbing every word. She felt a profound sense of growth and accomplishment. The assistant instructor stepped forward, face serious but respectful. "You've surpassed my expectations," he said. "From your first day to now, you have evolved from raw instinct to controlled mastery. Few achieve what you just demonstrated. Respect your ability, because others certainly do." Emma felt a warmth in her chest, a mixture of pride, humility, and determination. She realized that recognition earned through skill and discipline was far more valuable than fleeting approval or praise. The gym emptied gradually, but Emma lingered, reflecting on the journey. Each challenge, every sparring sequence, and every moment of controlled instinct had reshaped her. She understood that mastery was continuous, evolving, and demanded constant attention. Strength without control had once been dangerous. Now, with awareness, discipline, and experience, it was formidable. She felt the exhilarating certainty of capability, tempered by the weight of responsibility. The spark ignited in the gym had become a fire of confidence and purpose within her. Walking home under the warm glow of Dallas streetlights, gloves slung over her shoulder, Emma replayed the evening's events. She had faced chaos, pressure, and unpredictability, and emerged composed, precise, and powerful. She felt exhilarated, empowered, and grounded. Strength alone had been insufficient. Instinct without awareness had been perilous. Now, instinct guided by control and conscious decision-making had become her greatest ally. The journey ahead was uncertain, but Emma knew she had the skills, discipline, and awareness to navigate it successfully. As she reached her apartment, she paused, taking a deep breath. The night air felt crisp, carrying the echoes of accomplishment, growth, and confidence. Her journey had transformed her, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. She was no longer the timid girl who had apologized before sparring. She was deliberate, aware, and capable. Her instincts had been honed into skill, her awareness sharpened, and her confidence tempered by humility. Emma knew that the path ahead would bring challenges, but she also knew she was ready. The fire within her burned bright. She understood the lesson of her journey. True strength was not about dominance, aggression, or raw instinct. It was about awareness, control, discipline, and responsibility. Emma smiled faintly, gloves in hand, as she stepped into her apartment. The gym, the coach, and the assistant had shown her the way, but the mastery she had achieved belonged to her. And in that realization, Emma felt complete, empowered, and ready for whatever challenges lay ahead.